Now, in this different kind of example, we're going to tell you about 3 facts related to some definite integrals, or 4 facts. We know that the integral is from -2 to 5 of f of x dx equals 18, -2 to 5 of g of x dx equals 18, -2 to 5 of h of x dx equals -11, and -2 to 8 of f of x dx equals 0. And given those facts, we can ask quite a number of questions. The first one might be something like, what is the integral from -2 to 5 of f of x plus g of x dx? And that's just the sum of each of those pieces. We know that the integral of f of x from that span is 18, and g of x in that span is 5, so altogether it would be 23. Now, we could change this problem just a bit and really ask you about the same thing, and in addition want to know what happens if you subtract h of x. And still the same idea applies. I know that f of x in that span is 18, g of x is 5, and h of x is -11. So I'm going to subtract -11, and I'll get a grand total of 34. Now, a different kind of question, well, not different, but a different question is, what is the integral of from 5 to -2 of 4 g of x dx? And one thing that's true is that's equal to 4 times the integral from 5 to -2 of just g of x dx. And I know that g of x dx from -2 to 5 is 5, so if I'm going in the opposite direction, it would be equal to the opposite value, so in this case -5, and 4 times that is -20. Another question along those lines might be, what is the integral from -2 to 5 of g of x plus 2 dx? Well, I know what g of x is in that span, it's 5. But how do I make sense of 2 in that span? Well, let's consider graphically. Y equals 2 is just this horizontal line, and from -2 to 5, this is going to form a rectangle whose area is 14. So, it'll be plus 14, and so altogether, my answer will be 19. Another problem, the integral from 0 to 7 of h of x minus 2 dx. On something like this, you really just have to pay attention to your transformations. Now, hopefully you can see how it must be connected to the problem is instead of going from -2 to 5, we're going from 0 to 7, so there's a clue even in there. Notice that 5 is 2 less than 7, or 7 is 2 more than 5, and 0 is 2 more than -2. And this notation you should recognize from pre-calculus or algebra 2, and this is telling you about a shift to the right. And what happens when you input x minus 2 is you're shifting h of x 2 to the right. So instead of going from -2 to 5, h of x has been moved over, and now we'll be running from 0 to 7, and that's why it'll be equal to -11. In the same way, if we saw something like from -4 to 3 of g of x plus 2, well, all this is the function g shifted left 2. So that means 5 has been shifted left to 3, -2 has been shifted left to -4, so it's still the same function. That's why this value will be 5. So there you have another type of problem that's really related to definite integrals and areas.